anesthesia.
Anesthesia, yeah.
Ether and chloroform had been around since about 1848, about 12, 13 years before the war. 95% of the surgeries in the Civil War, it's not like the movies so much, 95% of the surgeries were actually done under anesthetic conditions, chloroform or ether. Now, in the field, they preferred to use chloroform because ether is pretty volatile. There's a document that it's documented that one surgeon had done an operation on a young man one afternoon. He came back to check on him that evening. He was carrying a lantern with him, and he reached over. He couldn't see his face, so he reached over with his lantern to see the young man's face. The ether fumes were still in the area of the stomach and blew both of them up. So chloroform was a little safer than ether. Probably use more ether at the general hospitals, where it's a little safer to use it. But what else would you like to know? There's all kinds of things we can talk about.
What was the survival rate of amputations?
Oh, good question. Survival rate was about 75%.
That's better than I would have thought.
Yeah. And that's everything from your pinky finger to your hip. Okay. The closer you get to the trunk, the less likelihood you're going to survive. But an overall percentage of up at 75%, which is huge.
Yeah. Because with the major vessels that are along the bones, that damage, it'd be hard to control any bleeding.
And not bleeding out before they got.
It was a very, very bloody business. They would put straw around under their operating tables to just help sop up the blood. Now, they didn't deal so much with the smaller vessels because your body's very self-healing, and so they would heal themselves really quickly. But the arteries, of course, they had to deal with, and so they had, let me get it here. They had this little instrument. You see how it's been fired?
Yeah.
This is a cautery iron.
Oh, okay. Cautery iron, yeah.
And so they would seal the arteries back closed with the cautery iron. Now, they would also take suture material and sometimes tie it off. And they would leave the strings hanging out of the body because they didn't like foreign things inside the body. So they'd leave the strings out. And so when the man got back to the general hospital 2 or 3 days later, the surgeons, again, like those strings in there, so they pull them out. And if the artery hadn't healed, it would, of course, pop back open and maybe bleed to death before they could get to him.
Yeah.
But this was the surest way to seal the arteries. And they could do an amputation from the time they put him to sleep to the time they woke him up, and they didn't like him let him sleep after surgery. That was bad for them. So they put pneumonia under their nose and wake them up. And but they could do an amputation, an average of about 12 minutes.
Had a lot to go. How to get to the next one?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Had to get to the next
Throw the
one.
limb out the window.
It's documented that, this was a very emotional situation for the physicians.
Yeah.
They just were dealing with disease. 620,000 men died in the Civil War. 2/3 of those men died of illness and disease.
Yeah.
200,000 died of battle wounds, which is bad enough.
Yeah.
But
that's kind of a.
But when the war started, all these young men came to these training camps, and they were crowded. They were unsanitary. They brought with them what we call today childhood diseases. Those diseases ran rampant through those camps, and thousands of young men died, never saw their first battle, died in training camp. They were just terrible situations. And the commanders, they would set training camps up in swampy areas. Now why, I don't know, but they would set them up in swampy areas. And of course, what's in swamps? Mosquitoes. Malaria, yellow fever, all those kind of things. And so, and the commanders didn't really oftentimes listen to their doctors.
Even to get rid of human waste in those areas was a battle,
yeah.
because then that goes on to your typhoid.
And their latrines and all those kind of things. Just right here, Guy wanted to go, he just goes. So, they were just horrible situations, and so I have a lot of admiration for the Civil War surgeon. I truthfully do, and they turned out to be. founders of neurology, founders of this, founders of that. The first, we call it plastic surgery, was done in the Civil War. A man had his jaw deformed by a mini ball, and so he went back in and reconstructed the jaw, the face. So that's the first that we know about somebody doing something like that. The ambulance corps was an innovation, surgery was an innovation. I mean, there were all kinds of innovations. And of course, I think blisters and pasteur studies in the 70s were a result of the war. I mean, wars are horrible, but they do bring out good things.
Yep.
Good things do happen out of them. So, but it's just, for example, the Dr. Quintard, or Chaplain Quintard, he was the chaplain of, and surgeon, which it's hard for me to imagine, of the 1st Tennessee. And after the Battle of Perryville, he wrote his wife, and he said, I get teary-eyed. He said, I have worked all night. It's early morning. I could do no more. I just sat down and cried.
Yeah. Day after day, and then to the point they're just.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And they were not only the physician or the surgeon, they were called surgeons. They were not only the surgeons, they were also the veterinarian.
Yeah.
They were also the dentist.
Yeah.
Anything dealing with human life. I mean, with life.
Yeah.
That was their job.
Remember the movie The Horse Soldiers with John Wayne?
Sure.
The original surgeon was a dentist.
Yeah.
Right.
Great.
Right.
But they took care of the horses too.
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
Fascinating.
But it was just we cannot imagine the scene at a field hospital. We cannot even begin to imagine the chaos. The men would be brought here. The men learned if they got shot in a particular place, like the gut, they were going to die. The first thing they would do is rip their clothing and see where did I get shot. And they pretty much knew if they were going to make it or not, just themselves. They'd seen so much of it, they knew.
Sounds almost like the amputation survived better than anybody that was hit in the body.
Yeah.
Kinda.
Yeah. Chest wounds, about 50% of those men lived. Yeah.
Wow.
Amputations, of course, we talked about. Guts, the doctor would do nothing.
That was 100%.
He would do nothing. It was 100%. Yeah. And of course, there hundreds of them are lying around this hospital, moaning and groaning and crying out for mom and dad and wife and whatever. I mean, we just and laying out there, knowing probably if they got shot in the arm or leg, that it's going to be an amputation. Anticipating what was going to happen to them. I mean, we just can't imagine what that situation was like.
No.
There'd be hundreds. I mean, they would work after major battles. They would work 2 and 3 days, documented that they would work 2 and 3 days straight without any rest. And to the point where their feet would swell to the point they couldn't get their boots off their feet. They'd have to literally cut their boots off their feet.
Were they using morphine at that time?
They were.
Is that about the only thing they had as a painkiller?
Well, actually, good question. Their painkillers included morphine, opium, whiskey, and the hospital always had lots of whiskey. And
hence the drunken doctors.
Yeah, and laudanum.
And laudanum. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, do you know what laudanum is made of?
Yeah,
if you watch Western movies, the White Earp's wife was addicted to laudanum, and a lot of cowboy movies. Gunsmoke, Doctor.
Doc Howell.
Doc Adams.
Doc Adams.
Okay.
Doc Adams used the laudanum a lot. It's 80% whiskey and 20% opium.
Okay. That's why they're always drinking it.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And a lot of men were on painkillers a lot because of their wounds. And so they got addicted to all those things. And after the war, they could continue the addiction because they'd go to the local drugstore and buy it right off the shelf.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
And they actually used morphine as powder and also as an injection. And they would use sometimes they would use morphine for a local anesthetic.
Okay.
They would rub the wound that they're going to be working on
To numb
with and just numb that area.
Yeah.
So Yeah.
So when did sulfur powder come along? Was that post Civil War?
It was after.
After,
I'm not
okay.
sure the date, but
Okay.
after, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And these are collection. Well, we can talk a little bit about some of these things. Of course, these are some of the enemies of the soldier. These are of course exploded cannonball shrapnel. And which one do you think is from the north, and which one do you think was made in the south?
This was in the north.
Why?
It's thicker.
Yeah,
They
so
had,
much
the,
more
they had the
material.
manufacturing
Right,
capability.
exactly, yeah. And I used to have a, here's one. Yeah, see how thin that one is?
Yeah.
Yeah. But these large cannonballs would be hollow, and they'd put black powder in the middle of it, put a timer on it. When they got over the enemy, it would explode and rain down on the enemy, on my soldiers.
The shrapnel.
Now this is grape shot.
Okay, that's grape shot.
These
Wow.
are grape shot.
That's bigger than what I thought it was. Jeez.
Oh, they're also heavier.
Yeah.
Now they would put 12 to 15 of those in a can, shoot
In a
it down
can,
a cannon
yep.
like a big
Canister.
shotgun. That's like a shotgun shell.
Yeah.
Yep. Canister.
It's like a shotgun pellet.
Yeah.
And anybody else want to hold them?
Couldn't carry the gun.
Now this is canister here.
Okay, so canisters. So grape shot's bigger than
Yeah.
canister. Okay.
Yeah, they would fill a can full of these things,
Uh huh.
and along with nails, any kind of metal object, buckles, whatever.
Yep.
And if the enemy got real close to them, they would spray that out at
Yeah.
them. Now, what is this?
Looks like horsehair.
Yes, it's horsehair. Why would a doctor have horsehair?
Use that for sewing wounds.
Yeah,
Yep,
very good.
like
You're just too smart.
Sorry.
You're just too
You're
smart.
right.
I read a lot about it.
The Yankees cut our supply lines, and so sometimes it's hard to get materials.
Yeah.
Of course, some of our best stuff came from captured
Yeah.
Union hospitals.
Okay.
And that's another story. If you remind me, I'll tell you about that.
Silk
But
was-
we always had horses, so
Okay.
they began cutting this horsehair. Okay? And to make it more pliable for suture material, they boiled it. What do you do when you boil something? You sterilize it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, we didn't know we were sterilizing it, but by
Yeah.
accident, we were
Accident.
sterilizing it, right? So, and our infection rate actually went down, we noticed, by using the sterilized horsehair. Yeah. Yeah.
So suture. What was suture material? Was it catgut?
Cat
mostly?
gut,
Yeah.
silk,
Silk.
even a little bit of wire.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes wire.
Sometimes one.
Your
Okay.
chest.
Like panel wire.
When there's a lot of when there's a lot of tension, they would use wire. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. But what did I tell you? Remind
Like
me.
captured
Okay.
supplies.
Yeah. Early in the war, a lot of hospitals were captured by the enemy,
Yeah.
and the doctors would be put in prison, and usually they would be paroled in 6 months or so. But General Stonewall Jackson, the Confederate Army, in the West Virginia campaign, Shenandoah campaign, he captured a Union hospital, and he said, "You folks are non-combatants, so we are not going to imprison you." And he said, "We would appreciate it if you would reciprocate and do the same thing for us." Well, as a result of that, in 1862, Lee and McClellan signed a pact saying that the medical corps was off limits
Yeah. Yeah.
from being put in prison. But early in the war, there were several of them that
I
were
just
in
drafted
prison.
into my army and said, now you're a surgeon for the Confederacy
Yeah.
or the Union or whichever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they expirated them,
Yeah.
expatriated them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. They did. Yeah. They sent them home.